I recently got my hands on a Casio CZ1 phase distortion synthesizer from 1986. It's full of a lot of really cool sounds, so I sampled it and built the Casio CZ1 Ableton Live pack. And this pack contains all 64 presets that I multi-sampled at different velocities, so you get different timbres with every keystroke. And there's also 16 macro controls with 8 macro presets. So you kind of really get like 512 sounds with this instrument. Right now the music is made entirely with this pack, including the drums. Phase distortion was a type of synthesis made by Casio that's kind of the answer to frequency modulation, which was popular in the 80s. It has a lot of those similar metallic sounds, but there's something else that's kind of special about the phase distortion sound that's unique. While programming these sounds in Ableton Live, I also used the sampler's frequency modulation features, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. And with the effects and all the parameters you can control with the macros, these instruments are more fun than the actual synthesizer. They're easier to control, there's a more diverse sound range, and they're all available at your fingertips. The Casio CZ1 pack is available at my site, brianfunk.com/Casio. And if you are a member of the Music Production Club, you will get this included with your membership this month. The Music Production Club gets you my latest releases as soon as they're released at a fraction of the normal cost, as well as a whole bunch of other Ableton Live packs, tutorials, video courses, and access to our community where like-minded producers like you are sharing each other's work, supporting each other, and helping each other make music. It's a lot of fun. We got some cool challenges going on right now, as well as a fall 2020 compilation, which you can be part of. That's the Music Production Club at brianfunk.com/MPC. And I want to thank my buddy Dave for thinking of me when he saw the Casio CZ1 at a local garage sale. Thanks, Dave. Our guest today on the show is Sam Gribben, the CEO of Melodics. And he's got a special discount code for anyone that wants to try out Melodics. It's MUSICPODCAST-MELODICS. MUSICPODCAST-MELODICS, no spaces. And that'll get you some bonus content and 30 free lessons. So check it out at melodics.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today, back on the show is Sam Gribben from Melodics. He's the CEO of Melodics, and he was on the show way back on episode 42 about 5 years ago, pretty much exactly 5 years ago, about 250 episodes ago as well. And we had a great talk about Melodics itself, but also education and learning and some of the creative philosophy behind that. And I'm excited to touch base with him again because a lot has changed. The world has changed. Melodics has changed. I've changed. We've all changed. And we had a great talk last time, so I'm very happy to pick it up again. Sam, thanks a lot for coming back. It's great to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much for the invite to come back. Yeah, and wow, things have changed in the last 5 years, that's for sure.
Probably more than a lot of other 5-year periods in recent memory.
Yeah.
But I think I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic for the future that things will get a little better and stuff. But it's really great to see you guys are doing so well and you're really developing Melodics and opened up some new territory since we last spoke as well.
Yeah, we have.
So maybe I can ask you rather than me tell everybody again. Could you tell us what Melodics is all about?
Yes, I will. So Melodics, in its most simple explanation, online music learning. It's a way of learning to play musical instruments. And we specifically really aimed at people who create music, certainly for our kind of keyboard and pads, learning keyboard and learning pads. Because what we found is that, like, if you're a music creator, music producer, and you want to improve your key skills, then kind of the default option is piano lessons, and it's not super relevant. It's not super relevant to the kind of skills you want to get and the kind of way that you want to apply them. So we've built a curriculum around learning keys specifically, and it's aimed at like learning the kind of techniques and skills that you want to. How do you play bass lines? How do you do chord progressions? How do you what is it, arpeggiating, and how do you apply that to the music you're making? And then also where we started, and in fact, when we spoke back in, was it 2017?
Yeah,
must have been 2017.
Yeah, it was December
at that
2017.
time. Yeah, at the time, Melodics was finger drumming. It was pad controllers, and it was learning how to do finger drumming. So since then, we've added keys and electronic drums. Electronic drums is maybe a bit more straight up and down, like learn how to play songs that you like. But yeah, really, the keys and pads one is for music creators.
Yeah, I think at that time, keys was the new thing that was going on. And it was really exciting because the traditional piano lessons, and I'm sure it depends on your teacher, but it's probably not what a lot of people that are making music on their computer are looking to do. They're looking to make songs and get information that's practical, learn the skills that they can use right away, rather than whether it's read music or just learn how to run through scales and the right fingers and all of that. So it can be kind of a drag.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot with learning to play piano that you don't actually really need. And then there's quite a bit that you do want that you don't get, so that's why we came at it from the angle of like, okay, so, like it might be a really typical setup to have your laptop or your computer and a pair of monitor speakers, maybe an audio interface and a keyboard in front of you, and you're making music. And quite often it's like drawing things in with the mouse to kind of program your music, or using sample libraries. And you can get really creative with that, and you can really make your own music. But our whole kind of thing is that keyboard that's sitting in front of you that you might kind of pick away at. If you could really play it, then that's going to really change your whole workflow, and your music will be a bit more yours and a bit more organic, and you'll probably make mistakes that will spark new ideas. That's where all my music making ideas come from, is when I'm trying to do something and I end up actually doing something completely different, which is a mistake. And I'm like, oh, I like that. I'm going to go in that direction. So yeah, that has been the feedback that we've got. And over the years, we've really kind of zeroed into that as kind of the audience that we're serving, as people who are making their own beats.
Yeah, my finger drumming got a lot better from my when I was going through kind of the boot camp early stuff, going through the grade levels. And it sticks with you, because if that's what you're doing on a regular basis, you hang on to that, because you're just kind of reinforcing it through your own production and playing. So I appreciate that. I thank you for that, by the way. That's helped me a bit.
It's a great pleasure. I love hearing those stories. I mean, it's certainly improved mine. I was I had an MPC 1000 for years and years and years, and I could do like 3 different patterns. And every time I tried to do something else, just the muscle memory took over, and I couldn't really change it. So it's been great for me.
Yeah. So is that where you kind of come from, playing on an MPC? Is that musical background speaking?
Well, when I was a kid, I had lots of music lessons, and my parents, bless them, were incredibly patient when I would pick something up and I want to learn this. And then probably like 3 weeks later, no, I'm lost interest. I want to learn something else. And so I did guitar and drums, and never really learned how to play anything. And then when I was at college, I started getting into DJing, and I was like, this is cool, because even if I can't do anything, I can just let the record play and it'll sound good. And then I do remember the point where, I'm showing my age here, it was like probably 2000. I said, I want to produce music. That's what I want to do. And I dabbled with Fruity Loops in the 90s. It's been around forever. I think it's still to this day how a lot of people get started. But it was Reason that really got me going. And I had a computer in a little corner and a little bit of gear and Reason, and I started making things. And then these days, actually, I've gone the other way, where I love standalone gizmos, like OP1 or the new Roland 404, the things that don't have a computer. Computer's my day job. and my email is too close by. I love little boxes that are very constrained in what they can do, and you can learn them and explore them. And that all started with the MPC for me.
Yeah, that's definitely been a big movement, the DAW-less thing going on, and so much gear has been made like that. And I'm kind of with you. I think it's nice to have something that does a job rather than trying to do every single. OP1 is maybe an exception because that does so many fun things, but it's also not a computer. It's a standalone thing where you can just kind of lose yourself. It kind of fits in your visual field perfectly, so you get kind of zoned into
I love it. I love the whole battery powered thing as well, and just like putting some stuff in a bag and going somewhere and setting it up and just exploring it and trying new things. I find being kind of in the industry that I'm at and having access to a lot of equipment, I get terrible gear acquisition syndrome. And so just going, I'm going to take these two things and I'm going to work out how they talk to each other and what I can do and play with that. It's been actually quite liberating.
Yeah. Oh, it's easy to get into that. There's so much cool stuff coming out these days, and there's great marketing, and then, all your heroes online are using them. And then, but I have learned that none of them has made my hits for me. The work of making music is still work, and it's still challenging no matter what you have. It's a matter of, I guess, you find the tools that work for you, but it doesn't ever make it easy. And
that's for sure.
I think something that you guys do really well with Melodics is how easy it is to get into it. If you are going to get yourself a DAW, or you're going to get, even if you're getting like something from like Electron or Teenage Engineering, there is a learning curve that goes to that, and you got to figure out their way of, workflows and stuff. Melodics is, I think, very cleverly intuitive in a lot of those ways. And I was kind of wondering about how you made that happen. Yeah,
that's very intentional. So I mean, I come from Serato. That was my last job, and one of the things that I struggled with was like how in your face it is on day one. There's so many things that you can do, and it's so hard. And I think it's a widespread ambition through the industry to make creating music easier. I mean, it is hard, as you say, so it's not, I don't think that there is a feeling that, it can just be made really easy, but getting into it can be made easier. But I still think that for the most part, for anyone who wants to get into it, all of the tools are hard at the beginning. They all have a really big learning curve. And I kind of want to design for the people who are keen but don't really have the time or the energy to spend a lot of time doing stuff before they can get into it. So one of our original design kind of goals was the fastest way to be making music. And we work with a lot of instrument makers, of course, and that's actually part of our proposition to them is like, Melodics is actually the fastest way to start using your gear, be it a machiner or a keyboard or something. It's faster with Melodics than it is with their own software because they're all quite complicated. So we designed it so that you plug it in and then straight away you're just like, okay, cool, let's go. And you're doing it immediately, and then it evolves and gets more complicated, but it starts out just like plug in your device and start playing it, start making music.
Well, that's definitely a big holdup on a lot of MIDI controllers, especially because they don't make sound on their own. And that's a surprise to a lot of people. I've run into that a lot with people. They're saying, well, this thing doesn't work. It doesn't make any sound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I get questions. It's like, so what should I get? Because I just want to make sound. And it's like, well, actually, maybe Melodics, because everything else, you're going to call me back and say, so what do I do? How do I use this? What are all of these options? So yeah, that was very, very intentional to just make it a way that it's kind of the opposite of a DAW or a tool, so its purpose is to help you learn to play it, not to create music. Internally we always have this discussion. It's like, if we're such an easy way to start using it, make sound, maybe we should add a few features. And I'm always like, nah, you're not going down that path. It is really for learning how to play it. But yeah, it is a quick, fast, easy way to play. There's not many options I can recommend that are simple enough for those people who just want to start out and tinker around. What is it? GarageBand, maybe? I don't know.
Even still, GarageBand's amazing, and you can do so much with it now. And in a way, I think that's kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but it used to be a little bit easier to get into GarageBand. But now there's so many features on GarageBand. It's grown over time. And Melodics, when did you guys first release it?
20, oh, sorry, can you hear sirens in the background? I'm in the bad part of town. When did we first release Melodics? It was October 2015.
2015. So I'm wondering how over 7 years of adding features and growing it, how do you avoid it getting too big where it starts to lose that kind of easy access feature, where you can just kind of open it up and it's not like, well, there's 7,000 things you can do with Melodics now.
It's a trap. It is I think great product managers are very, very good at killing things and removing things. Because it's a natural evolution. You add more stuff because people are like, it'd be cool if it did this. And we have ideas and customers have ideas and we add more things. And it's very hard to fight the bloat. And I don't think we're great at it. We've been talking about one feature that we've been wanting to remove for ages. And I'm like, next year's the year we'll finally kind of strip it for parts, get the good bits out of it and take it away because it's not doing what it was supposed to do. But it is something that you need to be really disciplined about and think about. We do a lot of refining, so for example, that first time user experience is so important. We're always trying to make that better. We're always trying to make it clearer what you've got, what this thing is, what it's going to do for you and why you'd want to use it, and make it deliver a bit more on that first time. So you're like, oh, this is what it is. And this is cool. And I think actually this will really help me to learn. And then just be really mindful of that main experience and add bits around it that support it, but don't mess up that main experience. The other thing is, we are a company that makes a software product, but a lot of what we're actually making is the lessons. So if you think about it like Netflix, it's another way of looking at it. Netflix has a piece of software that helps you find movies and then stream them. But you don't really think about Netflix as a software company. You think about it as the actual movies that you watch. So a lot of it is just concentrating on making great lessons and really honing and refining that curriculum to help people kind of get past the plateaus and the places where they get stuck, and not overdoing it on the actual software side.
So you kind of offer them what they need now, and then the other stuff kind of evolves and shows up later on.
Yeah, we've got an endless backlog of things that we want to do on the software side, and that's the nature of building software. It never ever stops. But yeah, very mindful that you can mess up a great product by getting too far away from the original promise of what it is and actually what people are using it for.
Yeah, and you know what? That sort of applies to a lot of things. Even if you're producing music and you're releasing music, your first impression, you kind of want your listener to know what this is. This is what this is. And if it's too many things, it's almost nothing. You can't tell what it is. And it's not really for anyone. So having like a clear introductory phase seems... Yeah. As you say it, it's like, yeah, that's actually what we should be doing with a lot of things. Make it really obvious what we're trying to do here. Because
I
I
mean,
think
it's way harder than you might think. Like we're 7 years in, and we're still like one of the projects. We always have projects, and the projects have names. And the current project is called Great Expectations, and it's just really about setting people's expectations and then delivering on it. It's like, this is what this thing is for, and this is what you're going to get, and this is what it's going to be like. Just so that people know what they're, it does what it says on the tin, and we're really nice and clear about it. And then it's, like, I think if you're not clear, and it's hard to actually get that across, and then you overpromise, or you say you're going to be a concert pianist in 21 days. It's like, no, you're not. No way. But we can help you like learn some good skills on day one, and it'll be useful to you in your own music making almost immediately. And here's how. Then you're onto a winner.
Well, just like if you're making a song, right? You might put 72 tracks of things on there. And when you listen to the song, you hear everything. You're like, yeah, because you worked on everything. You know what everything's doing. But a person upon first listen just hears all kinds of sound. Maybe they really hear like one thing, and it's just a wall of sound.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you guys manage, because I'm sure you're eating, breathing melodics all day long. The team and everybody are always thinking about it. You're always around it. So like, of course you know what melodics is and what it does. How do you maintain the perspective of a new user?
Talk to a lot of people who are using it. Talk to a lot of people who are using it for the first time. Record people's first impressions and then show them to the team. And you kind of get these facepalm moments of like, oh, they thought that thing was for this, but it's not. And we thought that was so clear. We need to do it again. Yeah, reduction. Isn't it? There's a great line, and I'm going to stuff this up, so you might have to like fix me up in the comments or in post or something. I think it's Rick Rubin who, on like in his kind of role in the album credits, he put reduced by Rick Rubin instead of produced by.
I like that. It's cool.
Have you heard that one before? I love that.
I
have to fact check myself, but
I've heard something like that, and that's a lot of what he talks about. Is like, my job is to just get rid of everything that doesn't belong and clear it up. And I think that's so true. I mean, more and more, like, it's like having that clear vision that make the values of whatever it is really obvious and easy to pick up on. And especially in like a world where we have so many options, and if you don't get something right away, you can just easily go to a bazillion other things. So those messages have to be communicated instantly. Yeah, I like that. And Rick Rubin, of course, has had some success in what he does, right?
Sure has. He's like a god, I think.
Well, I think you guys have a cool thing going where you're trying to make it practical for people in that, like you said, the traditional role, if like someone is excited about making their own music, their own songs, they don't want to spend weeks running through like scales and learning theory and all of that. Like, of course, like you want to learn that stuff, but it's not the first. It becomes much more important once you kind of already know how to do some of that stuff already. And
yeah, it does. And I think that one of the hard things is like knowing what you actually need to learn.
So how do you decide that for people?
Well, I mean, we have quite a particular approach to music education and particular philosophies. I mean, core to it all is learn by doing, learn by playing. Play is our tagline is let's play, and it's kind of about that. The play on play is you play an instrument. Our kind of one of our primary goals is to make it enjoyable. My whole theory is if you practice, you'll get better, and if you don't practice, you won't. So how can we make practice fun? So play is about fun, but it's also like it's how mammals learn is through play. Like your little baby bear will learn how to hunt or strip a panda best, how to strip a bamboo shoot. Where am I going with this? But they do it by playing. And so the whole philosophy is get in there and start playing with music that's actually relevant to you. And then we will teach you elements of theory kind of by stealth. You're going to learn these things by doing it. We're going to explain to you what you just learned after the fact, rather than saying, okay, you want to learn to play keys to make better bass lines. First, you're going to have to read all of this theory or watch all of these videos or that sort of thing. Just like, no, just get in and start doing it. And then we'll explain more and more as we go along.
You know, that's something that when I, as a teacher at school, high school, that is kind of drives me crazy, right? Is when kids are young, they like to read, they like stories, they like to make up their own stories, they like to draw, because it's all play. It's not this formal thing. They're just having fun with it with their friends, maybe laughing about it. But then as they go through the school system, they get in their seats, in their rows, and it becomes work and it becomes graded and all of that. And suddenly, it
becomes more like, this is how you do this thing. You need to do it like this.
Yeah, and then they hate learning, or at least they think they hate learning, and like stuff like that comes out, and it's just, it's disappointing and sad. And sometimes I feel like we're so used to that way of doing things that it's so hard to think of other ways to approach it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, bring the fun into it. It's been a huge part of it. And the other thing is that, like, typically I find education or music education lags massively behind where music is currently at. The example given to me was jazz, which is widely taught now, but it was like a 50-year delay between it first becoming like really culturally significant and then being embraced by the formal education system. If you think about a 50-year lag now with current pop music or electronic music or any kind of underground music, it's like it'll be totally different by then. So like, how do we shorten that curve and make it like, here's how you learn with music that you hear now, and here's how you learn to kind of dissect and create and understand music that's here now, as opposed to applying learning methods and education methods that were developed for teaching the music that people don't listen to anymore. Or, I mean, they listen to it, but it's not what music creators are currently making. So all of that methodology, all of that, I have a bit of a bugbear about theory. And one of the things that we've discovered is that theory means massively different things to different people. So for some people it's like how to read sheet music. For some people it's how do you sit at your keyboard. And for other people it's like, what is the circle of fifths about, and why is that, and that's kind of I associate those sorts of questions with theory. But our director of education, Roddy, you should talk to him as well. He kind of describes it as like a set of kind of rules and practices for describing a kind of music. So the music theory of what's commonly perceived as music theory that goes with kind of stave notation and goes with, has its roots in classical music, is all well and good for describing music that was popular 200-300 years ago in Western Europe. But like, there's a great line. This is a Roddy Kirk line. I'm going to steal it. He once said in a team meeting, Beethoven may have had amazing groove, but we don't know, right? Because the way that music was recorded doesn't capture groove. You can't capture groove in sheet music. It's just not represented in that way of describing music. And I would say in 2022, groove is hugely important. It's a huge component of music. Sheet music is amazing for capturing melody and harmony. But these days, I think the groove, the rhythm, the sound design, the mixing, the mastering, that is a huge part of modern music. And often the melodies or the harmonies are pretty simple, but they give the music richness through engineering techniques and kind of vocal treatment and other things other than just the melody and the harmony. And Western music and Western classical music in particular is really focused on these kind of old things. And at the time, I'm sure they were like, well, rhythm is for that kind of music for savages, as these kind of European aristocrats were kind of debating how music should be and how it should work. And that world has changed, that's long gone.
I have.
Don't get me started on that one. It's like the decolonization of music. I can go deep on that.
You make a good point though about how it's documented, like sheet music, right? I have a Nirvana Nevermind guitar book, and it's got like musical notation and tablature in it. And sometimes in the musical notation, there's like these really funny like descriptions that try to show you how to play like Nirvana. Like it's just there aren't words like aggressive, angsty pace. It's like
there's these Italian words to describe the tempo, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to say fortissimo. Is that one of them? I don't know them. But like if you're talking to a music producer in 2022, do you say, oh, it's fortissimo, or do you say it's 117 BPM? Like it's super relevant, the BPM of your track.
Yeah. By single digits.
So one more example, I'll get off this particular soapbox, is we've done a lot of music licensing recently, and you can copyright a piece of music, you can copyright the melody, you can copyright the harmony, you can copyright the lyrics. You can't copyright or protect the rhythm. You can't copyright a drum beat, a drum pattern. And that to me speaks volumes. It's like that was just not seen as an important part of the music. So, the drums doesn't really matter. Whereas nowadays, I think a huge amount of music is led by the drums. I mean, and I'm not just talking about electronic music, even rock and guitar-based music rock and roll is super rhythm focused.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's certain tracks that you identify by the drum beat. You know it before the music even starts.
Exactly.
And how would you notate some kind of like weird synth melody with some, however that's like some kind of wavetable synthesizer sound, where you can't play it on any instrument, and just because you play the same notes, it's not the same thing. It so much is about the feeling of the sound itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's an interesting way to look at it, and I think you're right that a lot of the education stuff, the traditional stuff, is really far behind on that.
It completely misses all that. So, the way we use that is, okay, we're going to teach you the C major scale, because you do want to know that. Or we're going to teach you this kind of like fundamental basic chord progression. But it's going to have a cool beat, and the lead instrument that you're playing is a really cool sounding synth. So it's actually quite fun to play. And it's not just like ding, 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 ding. It sounds good. And so you feel good playing it, even though from an education point of view, it's really, really basic stuff. And like drumming, for example, I've really got into drumming. I got into drumming a lot over the lockdowns of recent years. And I think with drumming in particular, you can't play the basic fundamental beats too much. You just need to play them a lot to really get tight and hone them. And so being able to play them, the same pattern, but with completely different genres and different sounds and slightly different tempos and all these variations, each time it's fresh and it's new and it's fun, and you're not just sitting there just like practicing. This is my whole the whole idea really behind melodics is that practicing is often perceived as this boring thing, and it can actually be, that you need to do in order to achieve something else, which is like getting there, the learning or the becoming a musician or the becoming whatever else. It's like, no, don't look at it like that. Practicing is all part of it, and it should be fun. It should be as much fun as playing.
Yeah, well, if it can be, then everyone's going to get a lot better. Anyone that does it, like you said, the more you practice, the better you get, and if you don't, you don't. But there's, I guess,
Exactly.
kind of like a focus to the practice too. If you're more deliberate about it, that's something that's hard to do yourself, I think. So having,
did you use that word on purpose? Deliberate.
I deliberately chose it, but
deliberately.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's the other thing from my own experience of having put in time to learning things, but not actually feeling like I was getting any better. And there was this idea that was really popular a few years ago, since been kind of retracted by the person that came up with it, of 10,000 hours and needing to do the 10,000 hours to master something. And the reason it was retracted is it's not actually just about putting the time. And there's this method called deliberate practice, which is why I picked up on that word, that is used in lots of areas, but largely in sport and athletics. And, how do you become a Steph Curry 3-point shooter, like with his amazing record? And it's all about this kind of set of methods under this name, deliberate practice. And that's what we use it hasn't been used to for learning music. And so why not take all of these kind of technical advances in the field of practice more broadly and apply it to music? And it's things like making sure that you eliminate mistakes. So don't practice a mistake. If you get it wrong, slow it down, correct the mistake, and then pick it up again. And I think with music, lots of things, but music in particular, lots of people really suffer from bedding in mistakes by practicing them over and over and over and over, and then they're really, really hard to fix, really hard to shake. So it's all about like breaking things down into small chunks, getting it right, and then just kind of building up from there. And it's really effective.
Yeah, I recently read Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. He's an ultra marathon runner. I mean, like, maniac athlete. Runs 100 miles. He did some crazy thing where he ran like 100 miles, like 7 days in a row or something in the mountains of Hawaii.
Oh.
But one of the things that came out of that was this like very intentional kind of practice where it wasn't just run as much as you can, because you're going to get tired. Your muscles will get sore and worn out and hurt. One of his coaches had him running with his heart rate below a certain level. And the goal was to keep your heart rate below this level. So if you go past it, you feel like you want to push yourself. It's like playing guitar too fast, right? I want to play it fast. But if you really discipline yourself to keep it at this slow pace and run so that your heart rate never goes above this rate, you get used to that. And then you get to go a little bit faster with your heart rate staying below that rate. I think it's very similar to music, where if you want to just play as fast as the recording, it's gonna be sloppy. The mistakes will be in there. But if you take the time and the discipline, you get good at it slow, and then slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That kind of thinking.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like any kind of instrument applies to, not just to guitars, but like when you see someone shred and they're technically amazing, but their timing is not quite right, or they're just slightly out on the fundamentals, it's always a little bit like,
well, when you play really fast, the timing can kind of, you can get away with it because the notes are closer together. So like there's less space for you to be wrong. But playing it really slow, like you have to hit that note right where it lands. You don't have that. There's so much space between the notes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what do you see in the future of music education then? Where should we go with this? If,
Yeah, I
some of
mean, I
these old
think
methods aren't really attracting people and they're not so applicable to what people really want to do.
I think the style of the music itself that you're learning, keeping up with what is contemporary music is super important. And I think there's a real opportunity, a massive opportunity to kind of shift people's attitudes towards what it is to learn an instrument. This is part of what we're trying to do. Is so many people I meet want to, and so many people are like, "Oh yeah, I bought a guitar, I want to learn, or I bought a guitar and I did it for a while and then I stopped." This is always the story. And I think if we can kind of change the attitude to what it is to learn, like for example, I love cooking and I love cooking for my family and my friends. I'm not trying to become a chef. I just like enjoy the act of doing it. Make the act of actually playing, like not kind of striving to become a musician, whatever that is. Or, people who say to me, I don't have a musical bone in my body. It's like, well, neither do I. I just do it and enjoy it, and therefore it becomes a thing. So I think that's a big part of it. It's changing that attitude, and changing the music that is used, and then also the tools. So that's where we come in. It's like, we can actually make this a whole lot more efficient. So my goal is that like 5 minutes of practicing with melodics should be worth 30 minutes of practicing just kind of free form on your own, because we make it so efficient and so effective that you're not mucking around, you're not wasting time, you're doing something enjoyable, but you're actually doing the most efficient way of learning. So 5 minutes a day is part of our kind of whole message, that it's better to do 5 minutes a day than like 1 hour in a weekend, just to kind of continuously build. And then just kind of developing out these tools to make that like really productive and really useful time.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Like, you're better off doing a little bit every day than the big chunk once a week or whatever. When I started playing guitar, I didn't realize I was doing that, but my goal was I have to pick this thing up every day. Like, even if it's for 3 minutes before school and then I don't get to it again, but just to like make it part of my routine that I pick it up. A lot happens when you I was the Beatles came out with the new Revolver mixes, so I was all excited about that, and I was learning some of the guitar riffs off of Revolver, and the first night, I'm playing them, and I'm trying to get into like the head of how it's played, like I know the notes, but I'm not feeling it as like a natural thing. And I think that happens a lot when you make your song. You just kind of play it in your natural way. But the next day I came back to it, and it's like, maybe it's the restorative power of sleep, but then it's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be done, with this kind of little swag to it and movement. I was just really blown away with that little rest. Taking that break for the day.
That is a real thing. That's a real thing. And I'm trying to remember the name of the part of your brain. I'm going to explain it, and I have to come back to your audience with the actual technical name. But there are pathways in your brain, and there's this this enzyme that's produced called, I can't remember the name, but it's the more you do something, it builds up and it strengthens these pathways. And sleep is actually a way of kind of improving these pathways. So like I've had lots of examples, lots of times where I've tried to play something and I've kind of got there but not quite, and then come back the next day and then just sat down and played it, and something has happened like literally while I was asleep that makes it easier. And this is a well-known thing, but it really does work. You can sleep on it and actually improve.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing it for like an hour or so that first day, and I got it to a point, but it was just kind of stalling out on me a little bit. Next day, it was just like, okay, oh, here it is. There we go. It just all came together so much quicker. And I've had that experience a lot of times where, and if I would have just spent like 2 hours one day on a weekend doing that, I never would have had that sort of, it's like this, like a jump or something that happens overnight, or a little time off. Not too much. You don't want to make it too long, but that's what I believe the consistency is so powerful with that. It just becomes a natural thing for you in a way.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before, but I think it's worth bringing up in our conversation how I teach at Berklee Online. And Berklee as a school, a respected music school, has started to really embrace more modern music making methods. So you can actually have your focus instrument be an electronic digital instrument. It could be a MIDI controller. The laptop could be your instrument, and it's just as respected as the next person with the classical guitar. And you can get your degree with that. It's really nice to see that kind of development. It's not universal by any means in education, but it's happening. There's a turn.
Yeah, I think Berklee are kind of one of the real leaders there. Actually, we have worked with Berklee on that curriculum for electronic digital instrument, EDI, as a kind of an instrument. And that's been really fun to collaborate with them on, like, okay, well, so what should be the standards, the canon, the things that you have to be able to do to be able to get the accreditation, and like what should that be for finger drumming? It's a kind of a new art form, new instrument. So how do you teach someone, and then how do you kind of accredit them to say you have learned this? Well, you need to be able to perform certain pieces. How do you do ensemble with digital instruments? What does it mean to be playing with other people, which is an important part of that education? So we've been working with them for some years now. It's been a super fun project.
And it's interesting too, because there already are string quartets, there's already orchestras, there's already all these different ensembles that exist. But when you start bringing in your electronic digital instrument, you have to kind of build it at the same time, because it's not just the actual piece of hardware, it's also what sounds you're using, what kind of synthesis is going on, or samples. So there's a whole, it'd be like building the guitar, really, and then performing on it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's something that we have managed to get involved in a few places. Actually, we're also doing something similar with the UK kind of formal education system, GCSE, is that what it's called, to again help develop curriculum. So that was a collaboration with Ableton, and they were working with Ableton Push. They've done a lot with schools, and a lot of the when they brought out Push 2, they did a kind of an exchange program, and all of the Push 1s that got sent in have made their ways into schools, which is super cool. And then also working with those schools and the educations to develop the curriculum, which is where we've come in. And yeah, it's a really fun area to explore. There are lots of teachers out there who really want to embrace this, like this digital technology, and it's starting to get a lot of momentum. It kind of comes back to that thing I was talking about with jazz taking 50 years to catch up. Is like, well, let's try and make it 10 years or 5 years or immediate. We are teaching people who want to learn with the tools that they're using now, with the music that they're using now, or music that they're listening to now, I should say. Yeah,
it's a great program. Ableton sent a bunch of pushes to my high school. I applied for that too, and I've got a club after school and a bunch of pushes, and the kids that are in that program, some of them are in music programs, but there's a lot of kids that aren't, and in them, I see myself. I was never in band in school. I played guitar starting in 9th grade, and as soon as I learned guitar a little bit, it was like the only thing I wanted to do, and there was nothing at the school for me.
Yeah,
it's so nice that there are things now for people like that maybe don't want to be in the orchestra or be in the band, the marching band or something, but they love music.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so important, and it's often when there are budget cuts in the education system, music's the first thing to go. So to be able to do it, to have tools that you can do in your own time, on your own, or like it's quite liberating.
It is, and I think so much education comes from that. I know I've personally learned so much about ego, say, for instance, in music, where it can't all be about me. It's about the bigger picture, the group, communication with others, how to discuss things without being mean or offending people, and how to take criticism, like all this stuff, like you don't really get in the other disciplines that you can get. Music and art can do that as well. That are
Yeah, I mean
essential for
it's such a personal thing. Yeah,
for like your
it's such a
career, your
personal thing, and it's
relationships.
exactly. You're putting yourself out there with your creative, and it's hard to kind of separate yourself from the thing that you made, and then someone's like, "Oh, I don't like that." Yeah, it's an
You don't
important
like
thing to
me?
learn. That doesn't mean that. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, you are not the thing you played. You're not. You're separate
Mm,
from that. It's a hard lesson to learn. It still doesn't always come easy too when you hear it, but
mm.
it's a great kind of it's not going to kill you, and it's a great way to learn it, to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys have songs in there now. So this is where there's renditions of popular songs that people can play. And I mean, that's how I learned guitar. I learned songs. I told you I had the Nirvana book. I mean, I
Yeah.
went to my guitar
That-
teacher and said, teach me this song.
yeah. I mean, this is a massive step for us. I think it's the biggest thing that we've done since we added more instruments, because I talked a lot about how we are focused at music creators who really want to improve their skills to make their own music, but there's nothing quite like learning with a song that you know. And it's been the thing that everyone's asked us for the most. All that we've had up until kind of a few months ago has been music that we've created in-house. So by having these licensing deals and being able to do it with popular songs has been like a big step for us. And it is, I got to say, from my own personal experience, it is fun. It's more fun when I'm learning the drum beat to Still Dre. It's funny, that's not the part of that music that you'd associate with learning necessarily, given it's such a iconic piano line. But it's really, I can practice the drums on that for a long time, for hours on end, just because it's such a iconic piece of music.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where most of my practice came from, playing along with my CDs and, just over and over again until you got it right and you felt it. So it's nice I think that's, if we're thinking about like the traditional way of doing it, learning music, it's not seen as real practice, but I really do think you get something real from it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and if you can combine, it's interesting you say that it's not seen as real practice. You're right, it is kind of looked at as like not the actual thing
I think you should
that
have
you
your
should be
metronome
doing.
on and you should be running through exercises.
Yeah.
That's
There's
practice.
a lot of you should
Yeah.
in music education, I think, and in practicing. You should do it this way. Don't have too much fun.
Yeah, whoa. You having fun?
Whoa. This should be tedious, painful.
To tell
No,
you the
but I mean, if
truth-
you can combine here's a song that you really like and you want to learn to play it, and we're going to give you all of that educational value by doing that. It's just the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And I knew a lot of great musicians in high school that were in the band. And I'd get together with them sometimes and we'd be like, oh, these are the chords. Play something. And they'd be like, wait, what? What do I play? I don't know. just, figure it out. Like, have fun, jam.
Yeah.
You get that look like, but on what notes, and
Yeah.
that's
Where's the score for me to read?
Yeah, and if they're more than capable of doing it, they have the technical chops, but it doesn't. That's not part of the education,
No.
And on
No,
my end, that was too much of the education. I probably could have benefited from a little of the formal stuff too.
Yeah, but that's such a shame, right? There's the whole cliche of, three chords and you can play most pop songs on guitar, but it's so true.
Mm.
And and I think also the other thing that's changed, we talked a little bit before we started recording about the COVID and pandemic and how everything's changed, is like music creation has had a massive leap forward, and like there's so many tools, and it's so much easier now to make music. The idea of making your own music is not this like, oh, I need to learn all the stuff. You can just start doing it, and you can just, if the education includes learn these 4 chords on guitar, and then you can write a pop song and just start doing it and flexing that. Like you say, the band members are technically brilliant and more than capable of doing it. They just haven't flexed that particular muscle of just kind of jamming and doing it free form and listening into others and finding what sounds good and being like, oh, that part sucked, but that part's good. Let's do more of that.
Right.
It's just, I think it's something that just comes with doing it, right?
Mm.
It's that whole learning by doing thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that make music that don't know anything about the theory. They just know, like, that sounds good together. And a lot of times they do things that I wouldn't do because I learned some of the theory. You wouldn't play that chord there, but hey, it sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line for us. We have been careful not to say, you don't need the theory, or the theory isn't a bad thing. But what we are saying is that there's a lot you can do. You don't have to start there. You can pick that up, as you go along. And in fact, if you're playing and then figuring out the theory behind it, I think that has a lot of advantages, rather than starting with the theory. I mean, the obvious downside to me, at least, as someone with a short attention span, is if you have to start with the theory, you got to do boring stuff up front. And once you're playing and it's got the context, like, oh, is that why? That's why that sounds good. Then you absorb it more and all those other things.
I think that's important. Have the fun happen, and then the theory means more. It does for me. I get more interested in it when I'm like, ooh, how does that work? How can I apply that to my play, instead of I have all the theory and no play yet? I never would have got here. I know me, at least. I wouldn't have made it. Well, very nice. I'm really happy for you guys and excited that you're able to develop the platform as much as you've had, and also keep it to its core. It hasn't, like you said, hasn't received that bloat where now it's too many things. It's still fundamentally the same melodics it was with.
Yeah, I hope so.
It is. From my experience, it really held on to that, and it's very accessible, and it's cool too, like, to think of how it's empowering people that wouldn't go through that traditional path. And I relate to that a lot, being that kind of person myself. And
Yeah.
I took a 7th grade music class and I hated it. And I was about a year and a half from falling in love with playing guitar. I was ripe on the tree, but it was just, it was not the way in for me. And I know there's a lot of people like that. And I meet a lot of kids like that too.
Yeah.
It's good work.
I hope we can change that. I really do.
Yeah. I think we'll all benefit for it, right? We'll get more music, better music, inspired music.
And more happiness, because I think that's part of playing music, and part of like what I really want more people to experience is that it's good. It feeds the soul. It's good for you.
Yeah. Hey, if we could give a little percentage of happiness to everyone, imagine what we'd be doing as people. The world. So it's really great talking to you. There's, of course, I guess we could say melodics.com. This is a place where we can
Melodics.com,
sign
that's
up
where you
and
find
learn all
us.
about it.
Go grab it, download it. There's a bunch of free lessons in there to get you started. Works with pad controllers, MIDI keyboards, and electronic drums. You can actually try it out with just like your laptop keyboard if you want to. And yeah, go and join in. Tell us what you think.
Very good. Well, thank you for taking the time to be here again. It's nice to catch up. And
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you to the listener. Have a great day.
Thank you.